Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. It is December 23rd, and I'm not going to lie, I am looking forward to my Christmas break. We just closed the clinic on Friday, and the clinic is now closed until January 2nd. So my entire team gets some space, and we do this purposely every year. When I first opened my clinic, I opened again on the 27th of December, and I tried to do that for 2 years in a row. And it didn't work for two reasons for us, or me, I should say. It didn't work because I felt like I didn't get a break. And I didn't get that moment to kind of reset how I needed to. And two, my clients didn't get a break. And because I was open, they felt like they should be there to continue on with their rehab, or appointments were made and then people realized they needed a break and then they canceled appointments. So we have closed our clinic from that last Friday before Christmas until, when things usually reopen now, for the last 7 years. And it serves so many amazing purposes. And there's a reason I'm sharing this, I promise. The biggest thing is it truly lets you, and lets me in particular, have space and disconnect. How many times do you find you're like, I'm going to give myself space, but the thing that you're trying to give yourself space from is still running in your brain? Like, you still find yourself deviating to it. You still find yourself focusing to it. That's me with my clinic. So I might not physically be in my clinic every day, but if I'm in the city of Nanaimo and my clinic is open, then my team has access to me and I will be there for them, even if I'm not in the space. And so I feel like I can never truly, and I have an amazing team and an amazing clinic manager. It's not that I don't trust that they got it. They 100% do. It runs like a well-oiled machine when I'm not there, but I still make myself available to everybody. And so there's a piece of me that even if I'm not in the clinic, I can't fully disconnect. This space that I create for us between Christmas and New Year's is the one time a year I feel like I can truly and completely disconnect. And I can do that because the clinic is closed, because there's nobody there, because I know that we have informed all our clients that we are closed. We have all the autoresponders on. We have all the things. And I know that on January 2nd, when we all go back to the clinic, we will be there like we never left. And so it creates this space for me to truly slow down, to truly reflect, give pause, give thanks, and think ahead. It gives my team that same opportunity because they love what they do so much. I guarantee you they wouldn't take the space if they had the option. It gives my clients and our clients that same thing, that same space to feel like they get to take a break and enjoy the holiday, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, but you get to enjoy the space with yourself or your family. Right? Sometimes you're a little bit like me and you take it a step further and you're like, I really want to disconnect from the world, which is how I'm strongly feeling for myself. I feel like I just need that 2-day absolute disconnect, reset. And for me, when I feel that, it usually means I really need to get into nature. And so recognizing that for myself, I've rented this cute little Airbnb in the woods. And I will be going there for 2 nights and 3 days over this holiday as well, to truly give myself that space to slow down, to truly give myself that space to disconnect, to truly give myself that space to reflect. If you haven't already, you're going to start being bombarded with the messages of what is your word for 2025 and what are your goals and what are your all the things, right? I'm sure we have a goal post coming up in 2025 as well, because it's an important piece. However, you'll also hear me say quite often, you can't choose, well, you can, but I feel like it's not as informative, it's not as powerful for yourself to choose that word for the next year, or choose that intention for the next year, or choose those goals for the next year, if you haven't taken a moment to look back at the last year, to look back at that last year and go, this is what I really loved about this year. This is what really worked well for me this year. This is what was really hard for me this year. This was a really uncomfortable moment for me this year. This was a really challenging piece of this year, but here's how I came through that. And here's the lesson I learned. Or maybe it's something you're just like, I just need to let that go. But we have to take that moment to reflect on the good, the bad, the hard, the exciting of the last year, to have an honest reflection of where we are in this moment. And you can look at yourself in this moment and look at this past year and go, okay, now I'm more informed about who I am right now, the lessons I learned, the things that I know worked really well that I'd like to keep going in my life, the things that I learned that weren't so great. And I just need to be aware that this seems to be a habit and I might need to do some work around shifting that behavior moving into the next year. Right? So you're making informed decisions based on your reflection of self. This is where a journal comes into beautiful play, my friends. Beautiful play. You know, we had mini school this week, and I also led the group through a bit of a meditation on this concept. This is kind of what we talked about. Our mini school topic this last week was wrapping up the year. And I led them through a meditation of taking us back to January 1st, 2024. And the journey of the year. And obviously I primed with the meditation. I said, we're not just going to find the good things. We're going to find the things that were really hard. We're going to come back to the things that were really challenging. But when we find those moments, we're going to pause. We're going to take a breath. We're going to settle in. We're going to ground, and we're going to find the lining or the lesson that came from it, because you're not there anymore. And we worked through the year. And then we went around as a group and said, what was a moment? There's probably many. But what was a moment that you look back in that year and you can just say, thank you. Thank you for that moment, because that moment was also a shifting moment for you. That moment created a mindset shift or a life shift or a physical shift, whatever it was. Like, thank you. And that moment you're saying thank you to could be an amazing moment that happened. It could be a moment that took your feet out from under you in the best way possible and had you smiling and laughing, right? That moment could have been an incredibly challenging moment that you had to dig so deep into, that the resilience and the inner strength that you have built for yourself from that moment forever has impacted you in a positive way. But if we're going to choose our word for 2025, because it seems to be a theme every year, if we're going to choose a word, we're going to set an intention. Do it with reflection. Here's the other thing we talked about in one of our mini schools. I also, side note, we do have some really great podcast episodes coming out in the beginning of the year. I'm going to give you a sneak peek into those in a minute on what they are. I'm really excited about our upcoming podcast season. We have some phenomenal things coming down the pipeline in 2025 for our mission, right? For our mission of up-leveling the standard of concussion care in the world, right? Global mission that we are all on together. If you're part of this podcast, if you listen to this podcast regularly, if you are a part of the social media community, if you're in any of my group programs, whether you're a clinician or on a healing journey, you are part of this movement. You are part of this mission and you share it with me. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me to lead in this space. Thank you for asking me to be part of your own things, to bring that passion and that knowledge and that awareness. Thank you for being here. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Back to 2025 intentions. Here's the other thing we talked about. So often as the new years roll around, right, we get asked to set goals. What are the things we want to achieve in 2025? And usually it is what is a thing we want to achieve? I'm going to ask you a second question. And that question is, how do you want to feel in 2025? How do you want to feel? We all have different feelings that run through our bodies, right? What is the feeling that when you feel that, and it's going to be different for everyone, you feel on point, on fire, happy, smile, whatever it is that you want to feel. I want you to tap in to what that feeling is. How do you want to feel? Because then that gets to be your barometer for the things throughout the year that you might decide to say yes or no to, for example. Right? So I know how I want to feel. Totally do. And I'm very excited about this year coming up. And the checkpoint or the barometer gets to be if somebody asks you to do something, or you're considering doing a project or a thing or whatever it is, check in with yourself first and see how that makes you feel. Is that in line with knowing that we're not going to feel this way all the time, 24/7? But is that in line and on the path to the way you've said you want to feel for the predominant amount of this year? Look at the people that you're surrounding yourself with. How do you feel when you're with people? When you're with friends or a partner or whatever it is, do you feel like you can relax and open up? Or do you feel like your guard's up or you're recoiling? I have a personal example on this one that the universe provided me. You guys all know I talk about the universe sometimes, right? The universe provided me a dark contrast of an example to give me the lesson to check how I feel and trust my intuition. And so I was having new people in my world, right? I'm constantly meeting new people. I love it. I love it. I feel like networking and collaborating and connecting with people with shared passion in a professional world, and then full disclosure, dating in my personal life, right? So I'm constantly meeting new people. And there was this one day, there was new people in my world for whatever reason. And I noticed that when I was speaking to this one individual, my body felt like it was ridiculously guarded. It almost felt like it was recoiling. My tone of voice, you hear how I talk here, my tone of voice was very sharp. My tolerance for this individual was non-existent. And when they said something that triggered, and I recognized it was a trigger, or they said something that did not sit well with me, this is how my tone of voice got clipped. And I told them that very distinctly and very sharply. This is not how I normally talk, you guys. But I felt and I heard how my body was responding to the interaction with this other person. Not saying there is anything wrong with this other person. Our energies and how we were interacting and our values and our mindsets were clearly just very different. And I felt that in my body and in my voice, and I was aware of. And I chose not to ignore it. Now, the universe provided me this moment of like stark contrast, Natasha, because then about 30 minutes later, I had a conversation with someone who I have a fabulous relationship with and trust imminently. And I felt my entire body just relax. And I felt it open. And I naturally had a smile come across my face that I didn't even have to think about. It was just there. And I laughed. That was my body's natural response to conversation and engagement with this other person. Don't ignore those things, my friends. So when we're looking at 2025 and you're asking yourself, not only what do I want to do, what do I want to achieve, ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And as you have interactions with individuals, as you're trying to make decisions on what to do, all the things, if it is not in alignment with how you want to feel, then that helps you make a decision, right? So important. It's not just pulling these things out of thin air. It again is reflecting on the last year, been like, how did I feel in the last year? I don't want to feel that way anymore. How do I want to feel? Or there were these moments where I felt alive and I felt sparks and I felt happy and I just felt like I was, whatever it is, I want more of that. You get to be the creator of your life. But again, I say that you want to go into making these decisions and making these statements with information. And you get that information from creating that space and that pause to reflect on the previous year. Okay. What do we have coming for you in 2025 on the podcast? Well, I have the first 3 months planned out, which for those of you that don't know me, or those of you that know me, to know that I potentially have a 3-month podcast plan is like gold. Because this does not happen in my world very often. And it's not to say it's not going to change, right? Best laid plans can all be changed, right? We talk about rehab plans. The best laid rehab plan can be thrown out the freaking window if it's not working, right? But I want to share with you about what is currently coming up on the pod for 2025. So first of all, we have our Rethink Rehab workshop coming. The title was chosen for a reason, right? We are rethinking. We are helping you create a different pathway, a different process, a different mindset in how you work with your concussion clients. Okay. The Rethink Rehab workshop is going live January 24th. It is recorded. You have lifetime access to the recording and any extra iterations or resources or things that I create to go with this workshop. Originally, our pricing of $199 was going to expire on December 31st. But then I realized I am truly disconnecting from the world from the 24th until the 29th. And I'm asking you to give yourself that same space. So if I don't want to be checking emails and I want to decrease my time on Insta, and I'm telling you to do the same thing, why would I create an end opportunity for December 31st? So here's what we're going to do. This workshop is being taught on January 24th, which means we are going to extend this founding price of $199 to January 23rd. I'm going to let it go straight up until midnight before the day we roll out this new workshop. Okay. After the January workshop, the price will be going up to $299. So you're going to save $100, Canadian dollars, if you're my Americans listening to this. You're going to save $100 by registering for this for January, knowing that you get lifetime access to every iteration. And when I do it again, you can have an invitation to come join live every time if you want. Okay, $199. Only time this price is going to exist from now until January 23rd. But again, this is helping you rethink your approach to concussion, which needs to happen with so many of us. And this isn't that you don't know anything, because you do, right? Most of the individuals that come into my world that I mentor in the concussion space, most of the clinicians have done multitudes of other programs out there. We go deeper. We look at it differently and we get change. So in the Rethink Rehab workshop, we are going to be talking about the Concussion Nerds framework. How do you move truly from chaos to organization and clarity, right? How do you systematically filter all that assessment data so you know where to begin so you can make change faster? We're going to be talking about the complex client and the framework of working with a complex client, because it's so much more than just doing the rehab piece we do. And we're going to talk about filling your practices. And another fun opportunity coming up in 2025 as well. Because when you're amazing at what you do, you want to build that caseload, and you can be, should you choose to, the go-to concussion clinician in your community. Okay. So this is Rethink Rehab, January 24th. You don't want to miss it. If you are a PT, an OT, a chiro, an athletic therapist, an acupuncturist, you're going to want to get in on this. Okay. So we have that coming in January. But on the pod, what do we have coming on the pod in January? Okay. I even did some monthly themes, my friend. I feel so organized. January, we're going to talk about the foundations of advanced concussion care. Okay, so we're going to start to build some more awareness and introduce some essential topics for clinicians who want to grow their expertise, and of course, for those on a healing journey who want to have a deeper understanding, right? So we're going to be looking at things like why concussions are not a one-size-fits-all approach. You hear us preach, there is no cookie cutter approach. You hear me say over and over again, every concussion is different. Yet so often when I look at assessments or I look at treatment plans, when I consult, it is the same thing that has no individualized nature put into that exercise program. So that needs to change. We're going to talk about the art of assessment, right? And assessment really is the fundamental piece, because if you don't have a comprehensive, detailed, depth-filled assessment, then how do you build the integrated, comprehensive, individualized treatment plan? I'm clearly liking adjectives today. But that's the piece, right? When I have clients that are coming to us and saying, I have never had an assessment like this before, that's not okay. So we're going to be talking about the art of assessment and identifying some of the missing pieces that I see over and over and over again in the concussion space and in concussion evaluations, okay? We're going to dig into Beyond Rest, the evidence-based approach to concussion rehab. We're going to start digging into multi-systems mastery. Don't we like how that sounds, guys? Multi-systems mastery. We're going to specifically start to look at maybe the vestibular, the ocular motor. So we're going to start to dig a bit more into those systems on the pod. Then, month 2, we're going to start shifting into what happens with those more complex individuals, right? So again, engaging clinicians that are listening to this and those of you on a healing journey by addressing some of the more advanced things we need to think about, right? What happens when recovery stalls? Why is recovery stalling when we're working with persistent compliance? We're going to go a bit more into concussion in sport and returning players back to sport safely. We're going to talk about vestibular disorders and concussion pain and the dizzy client and being disoriented. We're going to talk about collaborative care and how it needs to work effectively for concussion recovery. Okay. And we're going to keep going. So what we've talked about before, but we're going to go into deeper too, of treating the whole person, not just the concussion. The brain and body, addressing the cognitive and physical symptoms of concussion, right? So how do we start to bring in the cognitive piece of things? We're going to go a bit deeper into dysautonomia as well and those things in the new year. So we have so much goodness planned for the podcast coming up. The Rethink Rehab Workshop, I am so excited to bring this to you in 2024. The Concussion Nerds program, so for those clinicians, PTs, OTs, chiros, ACUs, healthcare professionals, we've made some epic changes to the Concussion Nerds program, and we have not increased our pricing. So if you have ever been interested in Concussion Nerds, pay attention, because there's some really cool stuff coming down the line for that one. And so for those who don't know, Concussion Nerds is my 6-month clinical mentorship program for healthcare professionals who want to confidently treat and attract concussion clients to their clients using the Concussion Nerds framework and process. And for those of you on a healing journey, of course, we have the Concussion Mini School membership, right? So chock-a-block full of information. And then we have more things coming that I just can't share yet. So I always kind of wrap the year a bit with the give yourself space, take reflection episode, because I think it's important. We will have one more episode this year before the new year kicks off, but then we have really great things planned for 2025 as well. So I hope everyone is having an amazing day, and I will see you all very soon. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.